Hello, my friends. A very quick touch point for today. One of our students, Arif, chatted in a question. Thank you very much, Arif. It's a great question. And Arif wants to know a little bit more about the risk register versus the risk report, which is a great question. Now, for those of you studying for the PMP exam, you know the risk report and the risk register come from the same process, correct? But I want to sensitize you to a little bit of the language used throughout the PMBOK guide regarding the risk report and the risk register. But I want to dwell on the risk report for a quick second, okay? The risk register is a register of risks, and if you go to 11.2, where we find the risk register as an output, it says, the risk register captures the details of individual project risks. So I want you to take note of this. Individual project risks. So I'm going to write some notes for you here. Risk register. Individual project risks. In other words, risks that could affect a task, risks that may affect a work package, risks that may affect a section in isolation. It says here in the PMBOK guide on page 417, the risk register captures details of identified individual project risks. The results of performed qualitative risk analysis, plan risk responses, implement risk responses, and monitor risks are recorded in the risk register as those processes are conducted throughout the project. So what did I just say? I said your risk register contains the results of perform qualitative risk analysis, perform quantitative risk analysis, plan risk responses, and even, of course, identify risks. So the moment you identify risks, you capture them. When you do your qualitative risk analysis, you capture the information. When you do your quantitative risk analysis, you capture the information. When you do your plan risk responses, you capture the information. And what else? You also document what you do and implement risk responses and monitor risks. What have I said in essence? What I have said in essence is all of the different pieces of information that you are collecting all throughout the project are largely included in your risk register. Now, I'm talking to you from a pragmatic standpoint as one who has practiced risk management. But watch this very carefully. If we wanted to be extremely PMBOK precise, we would make one argument here. We would say that quantitative risk analysis in the context of the PMBOK guide is not updated in the risk register in the context of the PMBOK guide. Now you need to understand real world people use what is available. In the real world, not everyone has a Monte Carlo. In the real world, not everyone uses a Monte Carlo. In the real world, some people use other methods for performing quantitative risk analysis, okay? But for PMBOK context, we do not see quantitative risk analysis being documented in the risk register, okay? Please take note of that, because this is one of the major differences between your risk register and your risk report. Your risk register does not have the perform quantitative risk analysis mentioned. Now, I know some of you caught that as I was reading the PMBOK guide, because what I did was I improvised. But if you want to keep it PMBOK compliant, you would say quantitative risk analysis, even though you will find references being made to the risk register within that section, the risk register itself is not looked at as something you update. What do I mean by that? Why don't you follow me to the guide itself? Let's go to the guide itself because I want you to take note. Now you know the way I roll. If you are not paying attention when I teach you on stuff, you'll miss some tiny little words that will just open up your mind. So please focus and concentrate on what I'm sharing with you right here. We're going over to 11.4. Let's go to perform quantitative risk analysis. I want you to look at the table on page 428. Looking at the table on page 428, go all the way down to where you see the risk register bullet. What does it say under risk register? It says, the risk register contains details of individual project risks to be used as an input for quantitative risk analysis. So you see your risk register as an input. You also see the risk report. Let's read the detail. It says, the risk report describes sources of overall project risk. Did you catch the difference now between these two documents by virtue of the mention of what they're doing in quantitative? What is perform quantitative risk analysis? If you didn't catch what it is, we need to backtrack because there's a key word in the risk report. Sources of overall project risk and the current overall risk status. Overall, big picture, project impacting, macro, summation. Aha, now you're getting it. That's what your risk report is. It presents the summation of everything that could impact the project. It presents overall project risks as well and how to deal with them. This is not, however, captured in the risk register explicitly. You will use the risk register to infer the overall project threat quantitatively, but you would not use it as a documentation tool for that. Project risks, overall project risk. You get what I'm saying? Because you have individual project risk in the risk register and you have overall project risk presented in more detail, greater degree, and specificity for management action in the risk report. So I wanted you to take note of the input to perform quantitative. Now, if we go to the output of perform quantitative risk analysis, what you find under project documents updates is this. You find the risk report being updated with assessment of overall project risk exposure. This does not get documented in the risk register, okay? Detailed probabilistic analysis of the project, prioritized list of individual project risks. And it says here, this list includes those individual project risks that pose the greatest threat or present the greatest opportunity to the project as indicated by sensitivity analysis. And then it says, the risk report may present suggested responses to the level of overall project risk exposure. And then it goes further to say, or key, the word being key, individual project risks. You see, so it does need some attention to be paid to the difference between the risk register and the risk report. The risk report has more gravity towards overall project risks and key individual project risks that can bring the project to its knees, things such as that, and the recommendations for how to deal with them. On the flip side, the risk register, this is where I disagree with the PMBOK guide. I believe the risk register is updated and should be documented as part of a possible update to perform quantitative, but in the PMBOK guide, you do not really see this being mentioned critically. I think it was an oversight. I think it should be there by virtue of what the PMI have said regarding those key individual project risks. But they choose to focus on just the risk report as the place where those are updated. But I disagree. But anyway, that's me versus PMBOK guide. For the exam, forget my opinion, stick to what is in the guide. All right. So in the guide, your attention needs to be on this. When we talk about the risk register versus risk report, the major aspects are overall, right? Project risks, okay? And key individual project risks. When it comes to the risk register, we are dealing with individual project risks and the responses to them and so on and so forth. When we talk about quantitative risk analysis, it is important to realize it's very, very heavily associated with the risk report, okay? When we talk about the risk register, we have identify risks, perform qualitative risk analysis, plan risk responses, monitor risks, okay? And that, my friends, is what I wanted you to pay close attention to when it comes to the risk register versus the risk report. There's a key word that distinguishes everything happening before quantitative versus quantitative. And I dare say that word is the word aggregate. Okay. Aggregate. When we're talking about quantitative risk analysis looks at the aggregate effect of risks on the project. Okay, I could go on and on. There's a lot more I would like to go into further depth on, but I honestly have to call it a day for now. For those of you who are getting ready for your PMP exam, and if you've been watching the videos and you're like, oh, I like these videos, there's a lot more where this came from. And I would like to encourage you to go to the Praizion site and sign up for one of our courses. The course I would recommend if you know you are struggling and you went for a course that was not good enough, you need to go through our full PMP exam prep camp 2018. If you feel you went for a sufficiently good course, but you're looking for a full overview of the entire PMBOK guide from a different lens, only if you agree your course was the best in your head, the one I would recommend is this one. But if you know your course was no good, go for that. For those of you that need audio, I would say get the Project Management Audio Digest, and I usually recommend that people get two anyway. If you feel you need training, coaching, you need that one-on-one guidance, you need to have a coach that can talk to you every week while you come along that curriculum, I would recommend going to pmsucceed.com and signing up for project management blended training, which is online self-study. And at the same time, it is also virtual. Every Saturday, we come to you with information that can unlock your understanding of project management. Okay, so go to pmsucceed.com right here, and I would advise that you sign up for this if you need coaching and training and you really feel I'm not getting enough by what I'm doing. I need someone like to talk to me to unlock my mind to explain the PMBOK guide weekly. You need to be on this. It's an 8-hour curriculum. You're free to send in questions, bring anything you don't understand on Saturdays, and we address it. And then you go back and you do your self-study online, you watch videos, a plethora of videos. 4 mock exams, 3 of those mocks are 4 hours long, and actually there are 2 that are 1 hour, and there's 3 that are 4 hours. So by the time you get done with a curriculum like this, you'll be on your way to better understanding the PMBOK guide. Okay, I hope this helps. Arif, thank you very much for the great question. And I'm going to check your email one more time to make sure I actually got everything answered. So risk response strategies will exist in the risk register. Yes, so I know there's a little bit of misunderstanding here regarding which strategies are in the risk register versus which ones are in the risk report. So if you go to plan risk responses on page 437, if you take a look at the inputs and outputs of this thing, you have inputs going in, the risk register and risk report. Outputs from here, we can see the risk report as well. So why don't we go on down to read the outputs of plan risk responses to understand which risk responses are where. I'm sure you've already got the answer, but let's do the due diligence here to explain it fully. So if you go with me to page 448, it says, the risk register is updated when appropriate risk responses are chosen and agreed upon. It says updates to the risk register may include agreed upon response strategies, specific actions to implement the chosen response strategy, trigger conditions, symptoms, warning signs of a risk occurrence, budget and schedule, contingency plans, fallback plans, residual risks that are expected to remain, secondary risks, quite a number of things. Highly recommend people read that. But then moving to the next bullet point, we can see risk report. It says the risk report may be updated to present agreed upon responses to, watch this, current overall. I'm sure you've distinguished that word now from what I said previously. The key word is overall project risk exposure, and again, high priority risks or key risk, whatever you want to call them, together with the expected changes that may be expected as a result of implementing these responses. And I told you, the risk report is a new thing to the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. I believe my buddy, the risk doctor, has brought this to light. But in reality, in a lot of firms, everything exists in the register. I mean, everything. That's all they got. They ain't got no risk report. But now that the risk doctor has brought this to light, I know some organizations may begin to have a risk report, you know. So to get it PMBOK compliant, just know that the risk report is where overall project risks and overall project risk responses are documented. For individual project risks, we use the risk register. Keep that in mind. And one more thing. Going back to the risk report, and it's mentioned throughout the PMBOK guide, I just want to highlight a few. Okay. Let's look at page 93. This is one of the first mentions of it. The risk report provides information on sources of overall project risk, along with summary information on identified individual project risk. Do you get that? Overall project risk and summary. That's it. It's a big picture thing. We want the big picture. If you gave management a risk report, they'll love you. If you gave them a risk register, they'll love you still, but they'll be like, why have you given us all of this? Give us a summary, the state of the union for risk on the project. That's what your risk report does. Let's go to another place where we have this. Another process we have this. I want to go somewhere other than risk management. It appears all throughout. Let's go to manage quality. Risk report. Risk report is used in the managed quality process to identify, watch this, sources of overall project risk and the most important drivers of overall risk exposure that can impact the quality objectives of the project. You see that? See that? So those are things to be aware of. Let me go to one more. I can see my time has really run out here. Let's go to communications, manage communications. It says risk report. The risk report presents information on sources of overall project risk together with summary information on identified individual project risks. This information is communicated to risk owners, you see, because you need to communicate this information to risk owners and other impacted stakeholders. We have it here as an input. So my friends, I hope that helps you. I hope that gives you clarity on this topic. Arif, more power to you. I am looking forward to you getting PMP certified. I have no doubts. I know you got it, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you. It's a great question. Keep on studying, keep on pushing strong. And all of you, more grease to your elbows. Let's get this thing done. Let's get it done in 2019. And if not 2019, before the 1st of July. In other words, by June 30th of 2020, let's hit this thing in the jaw squarely. I want you to get it done and move on to bigger things. Take care. Bye for now.